Hello there and welcome back to another episode of Check with Tech, your guide to all things tech. I'm your host Yaseen Azzam, and before we begin, I have a couple of announcements. The first one is Happy Ramadan to you all out there, and hopefully this brings a month of fasting, and hopefully we get out of the house in time for Eid. So because I have to fast every day, especially the times I have to record for this podcast, you might expect some delays in the release of the episodes because fasting while recording podcasts at the same time is very hard. So yeah, you might experience some delays with the release of the episodes, but don't worry, they will all come back on track once Ramadan is over. And the second thing, one time I posted on Twitter a poll asking you which budget phone would you rather buy, the new iPhone SE or the Pixel 4a, and the results were very successful, in fact, so I thought this would be a regular thing. So every week I will ask a poll on Twitter and maybe on Instagram, and hopefully you guys will answer and I will give the results. So without further ado, let's get back on the episode. So first things first, Motorola just announced the brand new Motorola Edge Plus, and first of all I would like to say something about the name. It actually reminds me of the Samsung S6 Edge Plus. I mean, it's not as known as the regular S6, but yeah, there was a variant of the phone which was called Edge Plus. So the same thing here, the reason that it's called Edge Plus is that there's also a curved screen. But that's not really something they should focus at at this time, because you find curved screens on almost every phone. But let's get into something else. What does it have? It has a 6.7-inch 90Hz OLED display with a 5000 mAh battery, only 18-watt charging brick in the box, and you have 256 gigs of UFS 3.0 storage, 12 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, and a headphone jack. Yes, there's a headphone jack. You have IP68, NFC, an in-screen fingerprint reader, and basically anything else you find on a regular flagship. And that's the shocker. Motorola is finally making a competent flagship. That's a shocker, and it's good because it's actually quite expensive, starting at $1,000, and it will come exclusively to Verizon subscribers on May 14. I mean, this isn't the first time Motorola tried this. I mean, even with the new Motorola Razer, it was only specific on carrier subscribers. So if you didn't have or didn't subscribe to that carrier, then you wouldn't be able to buy the phone. But the Edge Plus is coming exclusively to Verizon subscribers on May 14, and again, it starts at $1,000. It has the Snapdragon 865 5G, and what can I say about it? Well, it feels like a flagship. On paper, is a flagship, but is Motorola really ready to go again on the flagship business? I have no idea. They seem like they're ready for this change in, phone manufacturing from mid-range to flagship. And I'm getting ahead of myself and I forgot to mention the cameras. So let's talk about the cameras. Okay, so on the back I have a triple camera system, 108 megapixel main sensor, a 60 megapixel ultra-wide and macro camera, and an 8 megapixel 3x optical telephoto zoom camera. And there is also a time-of-flight sensor, but I don't count that as a camera. And on the front you have a 25 megapixel selfie camera. I mean, it's good. I mean, you have the same 108 camera on the S20 Ultra. I'm not sure if it's actually the exact same sensor, but nonetheless, 108 megapixel camera. I mean, you get really sharp photos, but I'm not sure who would actually use this feature, because 12/16 is actually enough. And well, what else do you have? Well, you actually have software that is actually supportive of the Edge screen, And why? This is actually pretty useful. This is, I think, the only company that does this on their phones. It's a feature that lets you, if you double tap on the side of the display, it basically shrinks the app size into the part that isn't curved, so there won't be any accidental touches. I mean, there are pros and cons of this. One, which is definitely a pro, yes, no accidental touches. I mean, I have a curved screen on my phone, and it sometimes drives me crazy. And the other thing is, the con is that, I mean, you get a shorter aspect ratio on your apps, so you have these big black bars on the sides of your screen, and they're just not really worth it if you could have just gotten a phone with a flat screen. And then along with that, Motorola also announced the Motorola Edge without the Plus, which is the same design but lower specs and of course cheaper price. You have a Snapdragon 765, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, a 4500 mAh battery, and in Italy it will cost around 699 euros or around $756. Till now there is no US price official yet, but yeah, that's it. So what do I think? Well, I have noticed a trend that more companies have started leaving mid-range phones and started joining the flagship group, specifically OnePlus and Motorola. And I don't know if this will continue with others, but good for them as long as it's worth the price and actually useful, then they win some money. Razer just announced the new reimagining of the Blade Stealth, which was, if you didn't know this, one of the best compact laptops that offered great performance and great battery life. So it starts at $1,800, which is steep, but I mean, if you continue to the rest of the specs, you might understand why. You have the new Intel Core i7-1065G7 CPU, the new NVIDIA 1650 Ti. You have 16 gigs of DDR4X RAM and 512 gigabytes of NVMe SSD storage. And you have a 13.3-inch matte Full HD and 120 Hz display, which Razer claims that is the only type of this screen that you can find on a 13-inch system. You have a quad speaker system, you have a lot of ports, 2 USB-C, one of them is actually Thunderbolt 3, 2 USB 3.1 Type A, and you have a built-in IR webcam for Windows Hello, which honestly I don't know anyone personally who uses Windows Hello, but if you do, then this is one of the laptops that I would recommend, but 1800 is a lot to ask for. And it all depends on whether or not you really need the specs, especially the CPU. I mean, it's a bit overhauled, but again, it all depends on your preferences. It is official. AMD just announced their new third generation revamps of the Ryzen 3 series with the Ryzen 3 3100 and the Ryzen 3 3300X. And let me just say that this thing really packs a punch with a really cheap price. Now, both of these CPUs will have 4 cores and 8 threads, 80 megabytes of total cache, and both will carry a 65 watt TDP. The Ryzen 3 3100 will have a base frequency of 3.6 GHz and can boost up to 3.9 GHz. And the Ryzen 3 3300X will run at 3.8 GHz and boost up to 4.3 GHz. And both CPUs are built on a 7nm FinFET manufacturing process. AMD also said that the Ryzen 3 3100 will offer up to 20% better gaming and performance and up to 75% better creator performance versus the competition, which we'll say, let's just say the Intel Core i3 9100, Both CPUs are set to arrive at May 21st of this year and will have an online retail price of $99 for the 3100 and $120 for the 3300X. And I mean, I think if you're really on a tight budget, this thing is for you. I mean, who wouldn't want to get a really good CPU for its price? And yeah, the price is just insane. It's very low. I think it's the cheapest CPU I have seen in some time. So if you are on the world's tightest budget and you want something less than $100, get the 3100X. Okay, this has been a regular thing in episodes now. So yeah, every episode from now on will have the segment called The Small Topics, which basically have nothing to talk about. But that doesn't mean it's not interesting. International Google stores no longer list the new Pixel Buds in every color, which is weird, but okay. Apple is looking forward to sell Macs with its own chips starting 2021. I mean, okay, I have nothing to talk about because we really don't have any demo of these products yet. Xiaomi is actually working on a clamshell foldable phone, much like the Z Flip and the Motorola Razer, but with a little twist. It will have a pop-up camera. Surprising, but okay. Speaking of Xiaomi, a MIUI 12 will have dark mode 2.0 and wallpaper dimming for those of you who are interested. And there are rumors saying that Google will start producing its own chipsets for new Pixel phones. Oh yeah, and speaking of Google, they said that they fixed the Pixel's marvelous marble live wallpaper. I mean, if you really wanted the live feature of this wallpaper, it's now fixed. And that's it. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please listen to the other episodes in the podcast and don't be afraid to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. As always, this is Yaseen Azzam signing out. See you next weekend.